Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Contractor Evolution. This is your host, Benji. Economic headwinds are giving the expression, treat your leads like gold, a new meaning. The days of being careless with your leads because, hey, look, there's always another one on the way are, for now, over. And in my opinion, it's time to become obsessive about sales efficiency, making the absolute most out of the leads you are getting. To walk us through 4 ways that you can increase your lead to sale ratio and sell more with less, Kevin Donnelly of Webrunner is joining us. Webrunner is a full service digital marketing agency that only works with contractors. We've had them on the show before. They 100% know their stuff. So without further ado, let's talk sales efficiency with Kevin.
You're watching Contractor Evolution, where we unpack the systems, tactics, and skills you need to take your fast-growing contracting business to the next level.
You're here to learn what it takes to scale up, work less, and increase profitability. You've come to the right place.
Stay tuned to learn what separates the new breed of contractor from the old school, and welcome to your ultimate guide on the business of contracting.
Kevin, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for doing this, my friend.
Hi, Benji. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
So I'm hearing a lot of struggle around all things sales and marketing. Lead flow is down. CPMs are up. People are making decisions way more slowly. Average ticket is down. There seems to be a bit of a headwind. What are you hearing in the Webrunner universe with your clients?
Yeah, with a lot of the contractors that we're speaking with, when you sort of think about what happened over the last 4 years, we had COVID that hit, I would say from about 2020 to 2022, those 2 years were just amazing for the home improvement and home services industry. Everybody was stuck at home. They wanted to renovate, and they did a lot of that. And then come around 2023, inflation was up, turmoil in the world was happening. Things changed starting last year, and we noticed that. Like you had mentioned, lead volume started to slow down a little bit. We sort of feel that a lot of the people already did a lot of the renovations and that construction work over the last 2 years prior to that. And it just sort of led a little bit to the slowdown. And when you combine that with the inflation rate that goes up, people just have less disposable income to use for renovations. So there's a bit of a slowdown that took place. And in 2024, it's somewhat continuing a little bit. There is definitely hopes with a lot of the research and data that we're seeing that it's going to turn around. But for the time being, what we're noticing is it is a little bit slower than we experienced over the last couple of years.
What is that sort of data around people hoping it turns around? I mean, is that wishful thinking, or is there actually a genuine case to be made there?
It is wishful thinking. There's a research institute. They're doing research. They're checking the markets to see how things are changing and things of that sort. So there are predictions that things will turn around, but it won't be like it was between 2020 and 2022, I would think.
No more easy lunch then.
There's no more easy lunch. I think it's over. So like contractors definitely need to be a lot more on the ball right now than they were before, because you're not getting the same amount of leads that you were used to. And like you had mentioned, people are a little bit more stuck to their money. These decisions that they're making are very important to them. So they're taking more time to make those decisions. They need to be convinced, reassured. And that really falls into sort of that sales process that a company has in place to try and guarantee that that's happening.
So today's conversation is going to be largely around this idea of sales efficiency, and people might have different terms for this, but basically the idea is, how do we become the most efficient possible with the leads that we do get? If lead flow is down and new opportunities are harder to come by, that does place a special emphasis on what you do with the leads that you have. And so we're going to talk about some tactics and a bit of, like, would you say kind of a system or an infrastructure that you guys have put together at Webrunner that's really helping reduce lead slippage, get as many leads into estimates or appointments as possible, increase the sales ratio from those estimates as much as possible, and then as well do some long-term nurture. So that's kind of like what we're going to talk about today, but I just want to give the framing on it to the audience. It's like, hey guys, things are getting a little bit tighter, and there's a lot of stuff you can do on the marketing front, but today let's just talk about what we're going to do once you have the leads.
So like you mentioned, the the processes that are in place to really maximize your chances, once these leads are generated, there's all of these steps that are leading to that sale. So, for example, with all the contractors that we work with, what we're noticing is that leads come in. You need to get a hold of these leads. You got to book the appointments with them in order to qualify them. Then you need to book appointments to go and see them, do the presentation. Then once the presentation is done, it's either a one-call close, or we need to do another meeting to be able to close that opportunity and generate, the revenue for that service. So what successful contractors are doing today is there are systems in place at each of these different stages of those processes in order to maximize your chances of moving that lead forward to the next step. And that's the big recipe, the big piece of the puzzle that we've been working a lot with contractors to truly optimize each of those steps, and to therefore, at the end of the day, be able to close more business with the same amount or less leads than you're used to.
Well, I think the thing that is very resonant for most contractors is like there are so many opportunities for someone to bounce out of your system. Like the sales and marketing funnels inherently are leaky, would be a good word for them. Just because somebody is becomes a lead doesn't mean you're going to be able to get a hold of them. Even if you get a hold of them, maybe they changed their mind since they gave you their contact information, or they don't want an estimate. Maybe they do book an estimate, but they don't show up for it, or like what have you. Maybe you actually complete the estimate, but then they go dark on you after that. There's so many spots within the system for someone to essentially ghost you. Or just not make a decision or do something that you're not expecting or not wanting. And today we're going to talk about the process, the system, the infrastructure that you can put in place to reduce that as much as possible, and be as efficient with the leads that you do get as possible. Before we dive in, should we talk wardrobe quick, Kev?
Sure.
Okay. Wardrobe today, guys, is brought to you by Grey Bruce Coatings and Insulations, owned by Gordon and Richard Harris. They are residential, commercial, and agricultural insulation, spray foam, attic blowing, vapor barrier stuff. They're in Bognor, Ontario. They've been in Breakthrough Academy for 3 years, and their business has grown 10% since they joined 3 years ago. Single biggest thing that BTA has helped them with, I was texting with them this morning. BTA has helped us organize our systems, whether it's morning meetings, training, communication. We would be good at these types of things for a while, but then they would fall off. We've now implemented a number of staff training initiatives, competency models, SOPs, weekly morning meetings. This has all helped us become a more efficient company and give our employees a better work experience. Amazing. Thank you guys for the clothing. If you want to work with Breakthrough Academy, we systemize contracting businesses for growth. You can check us out using the link below. Let's get back to the conversation. Okay, so let's maybe begin here, Kev. If we're going to talk about what good looks like, let's talk about what average looks like first. You work with a lot of contractors, so do we. What do you see in place in terms of systems, process, tech, to support or to maximize sales efficiencies? Does the average contractor have much there?
I would say when we talk to customers, probably about half of them, if not a little bit more, are set up this way. Leads are being generated for their business. The way they get notified is they'll have usually an appointment setter, or they'll have an office manager that takes care of handling these leads. The way they know that there's a lead is they look at their inbox and their email. That's how they get notified. And once they see that notification or the email that comes in, they're going to go and prepare usually a pre-scripted email that goes out, and they send it off to the customer, or they pick up the phone, they call the customer, and then they try to get them on the phone to be able to book a time to qualify the lead, if it's done through email or text. And if they're speaking to them over the phone, then they're trying to qualify it and then book the appointment with the sales rep. At that moment, once that appointment is booked with the sales rep, it's now an issued lead. The problem that's happening with that, and when I'm talking to contractors and I ask them about that system, a lot of them say, yeah, we usually call them within 5 minutes, 10 minutes. My team's pretty quick at this and so forth. And then when we actually test them in the system, a lot of times it's not the reality of what's happening. When you think about it, your staff's busy. They're not just waiting for the lead to come in. They're doing a bunch of other administrative work as well. So when that lead does come into your inbox and they're busy on the phone with someone else, they're doing accounts receivable, they're doing God knows what else in the business, usually they'll get back to the lead and follow up with it 15 minutes later, 30 minutes, an hour. I've even seen situations where it was the next day. And that is where there is an enormous problem. Because if you really want to maximize your opportunity and your chances of getting hold of that lead and really creating a first good impression, you have about a 5-minute window to take advantage of.
Is that the case? Is there research on that? You hear a lot of people talk about speed to lead, contact them within 5 minutes. Does the average customer want that, appreciate that? Or is it almost creepy because it's too fast? Where does that 5-minute window come from?
It comes from research.
Okay.
We've also noticed that in our data in tracking all this with our customers. And when you think about it logically, I'm going online. I'm going to call maybe 2-3 companies, to try to get some options and see who I want to go with. While I'm going through that process, if I fill out the form on one of the companies, within 5 minutes, I'm not back to my day-to-day, whatever I'm doing.
You're still in that mindset of doing search, doing discovery. You're thinking about the problem. You're solution oriented. You're capitalizing on the window that exists when they've kind of initiated that outreach in the first place.
That's right. And when you get a hold of them within the first 5 minutes, just think about it from a customer's perspective. You're like, wow, this company's on the ball. They're professional. They really want my business. So that first impression that you are creating by getting a hold of them immediately has a drastic impact on your ability to close business with them down the road. Because it is a bit of a race. The company that gets a hold of the customer first does have there's a higher probability, a better chance that the customer's going to say, hey, I'm going to go work with you because you were fast, you were quick, you answered all my questions. And the other companies, well, they got back to me later. Like, they're not serious. So I'm going to maybe go more in the direction of working with you at this point.
If we go further on down the funnel, we kind of talked about the inbox problem and the speed to lead problem. What other infrastructure is missing further down the line?
So a lot of companies, what they're doing is the follow-up process that they have in place is, like I said, manual. So when they're doing those outreach, a lot of times the contractors are going to follow up for about 3 days or so. So the first day, they'll send the email, they'll do a call, they'll leave a message. They'll wait the next day, do another email, do another message. And this continues for about 3 to 4 days, but it's very manual. All right. So we've seen with the data and statistics have shown, like, when you're calling businesses, you need to extend the amount of time you're trying to reach them. The reality is 90% of the leads will usually respond within the first 24 hours. Because they're open, especially if you're reaching out to them within the first 5 minutes. But there are people that are busy. Some things come up and people want to put this on ice for a little bit. So they're not as responsive. And what happens when you have a manual process in place is after a certain amount of time, you're just stopping because you have other leads you're going to tackle. You have other things to do. And it's just, well, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. We're just going to let it go after a few days. And that is a big mistake. There are a good amount of leads that do respond further out than 3 days. A lot of times customers need to call them up to 6 times. And on the 6th time, the customer picks up the phone and says, hey, thanks for following up. I know you've been running after me. It's just, I'm busy. Things are happening. But I have time to talk to you now. And then that's when they're able to book that appointment. If they would have stopped after trying to reach them the 3rd time, then they would have lost that opportunity. Whereas the competitor that is set up with a system and has something in place to do this follow-up in an automated fashion, they're going to be able to get that response from the customer because they're constantly reaching out to them. And that has an impact on their ability to book that meeting with their sales rep.
Is there anything else you want to say about just sort of like the average business and what's missing there? Or should we move into these 4 kind of tactical areas?
So the manual process is something that's an issue, as I mentioned. The other thing, too, is you'll have another type of customer that does have a bit of a system. So I have some sort of technology or tool that I'm using that sends out an email automatically or does a text message, or sends out a text message. But the problem is a lot of the contractors are left on their own to try and figure out this recipe.
Right.
And you only know your business. You only know what the leads that you're managing within your company. So the advantage of working with someone that has a lens in the entire industry and is able to test these types of systems across the entire industry, there's a lot more data gathering that comes in, and it gives that company the ability to optimize and tweak things and really find a winning recipe a lot quicker than when you're sort of left on your own. So when we do speak to customers that have an issue with their different systems and their processes, and we dig into the tech that they're using, they're just not set up right.
Right.
But it's not their fault. They don't know what they're necessarily doing. They're just testing and trying things to try and see what sticks on the wall. So that's also something that's particularly lacking a lot of the businesses that we work with.
In other words, just like, they have the tech, they have the tool, they have the software, but they don't have the education or the knowledge or the
The
data
knowledge
to
to use
set
it.
it up the right way. And I think a lot of people sort of they use the blanket statement. Why I have a CRM, or we're on Job Nimbus, or we're on Salesforce, or we're on Builder Trend, and then you're like, cool, that's awesome that you have a login. Like, but then what? Like, there's a whole bunch of setup and engineering and testing and tracking over the long term to make sure that tool is, the automations are set up and following a set of best practices that delivers the result that they want. So that's all you're saying. It's like you can have all the systems you want, if they're not structured the right way, they're useless.
And a lot of them don't even know what the response rate is within these systems. They don't know at what rate they're actually issuing the leads. Like, they don't necessarily pull the data out of what they're currently doing to know, is it really working, and or is it's not working. And even if they do pull out the data, how can they compare that to what the averages are within the industry? Like, how do you know if that percentage, your lead issue rate for which you're issuing these leads to sales reps, it's a good rate? Like, how can you compare that? They don't have that
Sure.
insight.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the big advantages of sharing and bringing a lot of that information and insight to the companies. It gives you that ability to sort of know and see where you stand in comparison to the average of the industry.
Do you have any insight around how many leads are actually salvageable in that longer term time frame? Because it's generally been my attitude, and this is not a good one, so I'm kind of calling myself out here, but it's generally been my attitude that after the fourth or fifth or sixth phone call, like, I'm like the person you described. I'm like, I'm going to abandon this because I have other stuff to go and do, and I'm like a stalker. This is just too many follow-ups, and frankly, I'm lazy and I don't want to call them anymore.
That's right.
Like, do you know anything about like the effectiveness? How many leads are kind of putting their hands back up and saying, oh no, I actually do want an estimate 6 weeks later, 6 months later, a year later?
That will really depend on the type of service. So, for example, if I need repairs on my roof, the time to make that decision is going to be a lot shorter than if I'm looking for landscaping services. People that are looking to do the landscaping in their yard, for example, like, they're searching this stuff a year in advance. So they have the time. They're not they're not impatient, and they don't need to move real quick. So we'll see a lot, for example, in the landscaping side of things, it takes more time. That 6-month window is actually beneficial and does help them when they have a system in place where we're constantly reaching out to them over that period of time. But if you have a service like a repair job for a roof or siding or windows or something of that sort, well, 6 months, they already went with somebody. They're going with someone within the next week or 2 weeks, they're going to make that decision. So depending on the type of service that you're offering or the interest that the customer has, that window will change. But we do see, for example, in the landscaping side of things, that where the sales process lasts over usually like a year, there is usually about 20 to 30% of the leads that will respond to them after the first month. And the response that we see, it's just like, hey, thanks for reaching out to me. I was just, I was interested. I'm not in a hurry right now, but like, now I'm actually a little bit more serious. So I'd like to talk to you at this point.
Before we dive into these solutions, I wonder if you have any data on what a good lead to sale ratio should be. You mentioned something earlier. A lot of us are stuck in our own businesses. We don't really have a whole lot of external data or benchmarks to compare to. It's very easy when you're locked into your own entrepreneurial world to sort of normalize things that are actually super unhealthy or could be optimized way better. I know many contractors who would just have an attitude, well, no, I mean, I burn through half my leads. Like, that's normal. Like, I chuck half of them away, or 60% of them away, or maybe they have an attitude that, I mean, no, nobody can sell at a higher percentage than 25%. That's just what normal is. And when in reality, there are examples out there in the contracting space that are incongruent with their lived experience, because that business has set up systems differently, has pricing strategies that are better, has better marketing collateral, but because they've never exposed themselves, they just don't know, and they take that to be true. So this is the long-winded way of asking you a question, but what is, like, do you have any data, even if you don't have hard data because it's different from business to business, some insight to share around what good sales efficiency should be?
Yeah. So I get a lot of times, sometimes when we talk to customers, they'll say, yeah, the other company I was working with, the leads were bad. The
Yeah,
lead quality is
that's a
bad. And you
classic
sort of,
line.
it's a classic one. And you dig into their process. It's all manually done. They're not on the ball on things. So that's one that comes up on a regular basis when you speak to people. What we notice when we're looking at all the stats, so the averages that we see are usually your lead issue rate. You should be expecting to issue the leads that you generate. And what I mean is by the time you get the lead, to qualify and book an appointment and therefore issue it to a sales rep to go and see the customer to do that meeting, you should be looking at a rate of between 60 to 70%. That's what all the customers are usually, that's the average that we see across the board.
Let me just slow down here and be super clear. 60 to 70% of the leads you get should get qualified and then get scheduled into an appointment.
And exactly.
Does that include the appointment actually happening? Because then there is the issue of no-shows and reschedules. So is it 70% turned into a completed appointment or just a booked appointment?
A completed appointment.
Okay. So 70% of the leads you get, 60 to 70, you should be completing an estimate with. That's healthy.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
That lines up with my experience too. And 30. A lot of people think that you can be more. We're super efficient. We only slip 5% of leads, or we quote 100% of our leads. I would make the case that you're probably wasting a lot of time on tire kickers, and your qualifying probably needs to be tighter. So exactly. I like what you're saying there. 60 to 70% is healthy. What about appointment to sale? Like, is there any benchmarks you see around like sales efficiency, someone's success rate when they're actually completing an estimate? Is it 40%? Is it 50%? Does it depend on the industry?
It's 30%.
Okay.
So the average we're seeing across I'm talking, when I say averages, like I'm talking about companies that are doing 80 million a year, 100 million, a million, like the averages across all these different businesses. And everybody seems to be, the successful companies that are doing good are usually around the 30% closing rate. So from the moment you're doing the appointment all the way to actually closing, getting the contract from the customer, you should expect that. If you're doing less than that, there's room for improvement. Normally we'll start to see 40%, which is rare, but we'll start to see 40% around companies that have been around for a long time. They have they're well branded, household name in the market. So when people are searching online and looking for options, they see their name like, oh, I know who this company is. And that just helps them or encourages the customer to want to choose that customer, that contractor as an option. So that helps with the percentages when you're a well-known company. When you're not well-known, you're newer, it's tougher to go get that sale, especially when you're competing with other companies that have been around for 20, 30 years. So the average, like I say, would be 30. It's rare that we see people over 40, but we do have certain use cases where we have 40%, but we'll never see 50. The only time you'll get a 50% closing rate, a lot of times it's on a referral.
Yeah.
And between us, I mean, referral, they're already 50% sold before they even contacted you. So you'll get higher percentages around referrals. Obviously, repeat business, those have high closing rates. Those are like even above 50%. But just I would say, branded, somewhat cold lead, just someone searching and calling different options, you're looking at about 30% close around those.
The other exception to the rule, and there will for sure be someone listening to this, we're like, wow, you don't know what you're talking about. I sell at 60%. And that may be true. That is in those cases, it's probably quite a small business, and it's a very local business, and it's like you, the owner, and you do the sales. And like you said, 50% of your leads are referral. The remainder of them are fairly close to home leads. When you say, because volume sort of forces the average out,
right?
Right. Like that's what happens when you scale up. It's not you doing all the sales anymore. It's a team of people, and frankly, they're not as good at you. Your marketing becomes a little bit more efficient because you have to try new campaigns and try more stuff. So then that slips. So it forces the average down. And so when you say a 60 to 70% sort of lead to estimate, or lead to proposal, whatever, and then a 30% proposal to sale, that would be for a more scaled up system, correct?
Someone that's investing advertising dollars to acquire traffic, to acquire leads. It could be someone that's buying these leads through third-party aggregators, running pay-per-click campaigns, social media campaigns, all of that stuff.
Really important distinction. Really important
Yep.
distinction. If you're, if you have a small little business with a few guys, and it's your name and face on everything, you are going to have a higher sales efficiency just because of the nature of the business. What we're talking about are more scaled up businesses. Okay. let's dive into these 4 sections. We got speed to lead, sales follow-up, reviews, reactivation, and referrals. We're going to spend a few minutes on each. I'm going to just hand the mic to you. Take us through it, Kev.
Okay. So speed to lead, we talked about that 5-minute window, which is key. It is very difficult to be able to do that if you're manually waiting for these leads to come into your inbox. So when you have a system in place, what the system should be doing for you is as soon as the lead comes in, you should be sending them a text message introducing who the person is that this lead's going to be working with. So what I mean by that is try to make sure your messages, just make them personable. Don't make them like, hey, thank you for calling this company. We value your business and we care and we would like to book an appointment. No, just, hi, my name is Kevin. Hi, Benji, my name is Kevin. Thanks for reaching out to us. I'd love to get on a call with you. Here's a link to book an appointment. So that's one of the key points that I want to definitely hit home. We've tested different speed to leads where we are sending them a text message immediately. Usually we're going to follow up with them with an email. So you're trying a different medium to see if that works out. And we'll usually wait to give them 2 minutes to reply to the text. If they don't, we'll send them an email, give them 2 minutes to reply to the email. And if they don't reply to either of those two, we then call out to the lead. Now, the problem when you're calling the lead manually is, again, you're busy. You're on the phone with someone and you come back to your inbox and 15, 20 minutes went by. And you're like, oh, geez, I'm late. I got to call them right away. So what happens with it when you're using a tool is the tool is set up so that it calls your team. When they pick up the phone, they can now press a button, basically call out to the customer. And what that does is it guarantees that within that first 5-minute window, you're texting, emailing, and calling out to that lead. The beauty behind these types of systems is that a lot of times we've noticed that with running them for 1 week, you are able to get a hold of 3/4 of these leads and book the appointments, but there's still a certain amount that you're not able to, and you want to be a little bit more aggressive with them. At the end of the day, they did give you permission to reach out to them. That's the reason they contacted you to begin with. So in that process, after the first 5 minutes, you want the system to continually engaging them over the next couple of days. So a lot of times, if the lead comes in the first day, we're hitting them up first 5 minutes. If it's in the morning, we're going to hit them up again in the afternoon before finishing off the day. Following day, we're going to send them another text. We're going to call them again. Third day, we're going to do it again. Usually we'll skip the 4th day just to give them a bit of time. And then the 5th day, we start it over again. And as of the 5th day moving forward, we're usually hitting them up every 2 days with a text, an email, a call. And the thing is, there are actually key moments, key times in the day where you could really increase the chances of getting this customer to respond to your call when you do call them.
Based on what? Just based on sort of research data on when people pick up the phone? Yeah. Okay.
So research data, we've obviously tested this ourselves. So when we're running speed to lead, we've done it at all hours of the day. And we noticed that there were higher response rates from customers when you tried to contact them, usually between 8 and 9 in the morning, 11 and 12, 4 and 5.
Why do you think that is? Do you have a take?
Because when you think about it logically, you're calling me in the morning before I start work or before I start my meeting or start my shift or start something. So there's a higher probability that I'm going to answer. I'm sitting there just going through my emails, getting my day ready. You call, like, okay, I'll pick up the phone. 11 to 12, I'm waiting in line, ordering my lunch or doing something. I got some free time. So if you hit me up 11:45, there's a higher chance I'm going to pick up that call. And a lot of people do the research on the employer's time. Let's be realistic. A lot of them do that. So the 4 to 5 is a key moment where they're finishing up their day and they're just going to do some personal stuff before 5 o'clock comes around and they leave to go home.
That's
so
funny.
If you call,
that's so true. I always do something like I'm gonna book my flights, do my personal banking, check my spreadsheet, get back to a few people. That 4 to 5 window is often. I'm always like 4:30. Like, I'm tired of this. Let me just switch gears. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. That I wondered if you. I had a theory on it. I mean, obviously the data is what tells the story, but there is something about human behavior and the circadian rhythm and the average sort of working week that we all go through that lines up with that. Can I ask you another question before we get too far down this? Because this is such important stuff. A lot of listeners might be hearing what you're saying and they get intuitively why it's valuable to reach out to someone quickly, but there could be a bit of a snafu on the tech. Like what softwares how do I ask this? What kind of features does the CRM or marketing software need to have? Like if someone were shopping for tools that can do this, what are they looking for to ensure that this capability is baked in? Because there are some that are very, very rudimentary and all they have is, a basic CRM, but it doesn't have good
Yeah.
marketing automation. It has a little bit of like a scheduling thing, but like we get in trouble sometimes with the tools that we select. So how should someone make sure that what they have right now has the ability to build this stuff into it? Or if they're shopping, what are they looking for?
Awesome question. There's like three scenarios here. You have systems which are all broken up into different modules, meaning, well, I need a chat. I'm going to buy one platform that just does the chat.
Yeah.
One platform that just does the texting, a call tracking tool. So to handle the calls and things of that sort. If you go in that direction, what's going to happen is your monthly fees are going to go up because you're paying individual fees across the board for all that stuff. Then you get another scenario where you'll have someone that has a CRM. And like you said, not all CRMs have the marketing automation component built into it. So they need to use another tool. If you go in that direction, the tool that you're looking for, you need to be able to text the customer. Open rates on text messages are like 90%.
Yeah.
When was the last time you got a text, you didn't check your phone to see what was written in that message? Like, it's just insane to the point where a lot of our outbound communications are more through text message and email these days.
We've made the switch in the last 18 months too. It's way better.
So you got to be able to text. You got to be able to email them. Ideally, a lot of times the tools stop at that. But you need to ideally be able to call out, because that example I told you in the 5-minute window where your office manager or the call center that you're using to handle these inbound leads, they don't need to worry when the call. We're going to let them know when it's time to call. And that's what guarantees the efficiency and the consistency in your business to call out to the leads on a timely manner. So if you have that capability to do these call outs automatically with some sort of dialer built into it, that'll be a huge plus. Okay. The fourth thing is calendars. We're seeing more and more people are booking their appointments automatically through the calendar.
Self-serve. They go in, they look at the option via Calendly or SavvyCal or Calendar Now. There's a bunch of them, but they're basically looking, they click on the day, they see the open spots, they click, they fill out their name, and then that thing auto-generates sort of a calendar invite to both the business and the potential customer. That's what you're talking about.
And for your business, it just makes it easier for your staff. They don't need to go back and forth, run after to find times to get on a phone with them or anything like that. The customer's doing it themselves for them.
Yeah.
So it's cool for the customer. It's easy for them to go and book. And it's easier for the contractor. They don't need to run after them as much to try and get them to book something on the calendar.
So you
the
guys
calendar
are really,
is key.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll ask later.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so the calendar, these 4 parts need to be together if you really want to have a solid system in place that's going to help you.
Okay. You guys are bullish on the calendar thing, the self-schedule thing. Is it the case that those self-schedule estimates have a higher no-show rate? If people are like basically booking themselves into your calendar, they've not spoken to a human yet, there's less sort of there's less, here's how I describe it. They feel less guilt for rescheduling or no-showing because they've never talked to a human. They just like entered in a few fields. So it's been our experience that the no-show rate goes up on those self-schedules. Is that something that you've observed? Is there a way to fix that? Do you just not care? Do you kind of live with the no-shows because your volume goes up? What are your thoughts on that?
There are 2 strategies or 2 things you could do to really try and avoid getting no-shows. First of all, the reason you're getting no-shows a lot of times is because the time that you're booking these appointments, especially for like meetings, they're just too far out. If you're booking meetings a week to 2 weeks in the future, like your customer, don't forget, they're speaking to other companies. And if these other companies are seeing them within the next few days, by the time they meet 2 of them, there's a good chance they're probably going to choose one.
So what's optimal?
Within a week,
okay.
You want to be able to sit down and see your customer.
Okay.
If you're doing a discovery call with them, within 24 hours, you want to be able to do that discovery call, ideally the same day. So when we have these calendars built where we're actually booking calls to qualify the lead to take it to the next step, we're really going hard on making sure they're doing it the same day with the customer, or at least giving them that option in the calendar. The other thing as well is leading up to the meeting. So if I'm booking a meeting in 2 or 3 days from now, so I'm doing a good job, it's within a week, you should be focusing on creating a certain amount of excitement leading up to that call to increase your chances or decrease your chances of having a no-show. What I mean by that specifically is send the messages on what the experience is working with your company. So here's what to expect on this call. Send them a picture and a bio of who the person is that they're going to go and see and create excitement that way. Talk a little bit about some of the projects you recently did, especially for like remodelers or landscapers, things of that sort. Say, hey, here's a bunch of projects that we did. We have this catalog for you to have a look at. This will help you come up with ideas before we meet tomorrow and things of that sort. So by, again, staying top of mind and keeping them warm this way and excited with the different messages that you're leveraging, it decreases the no-show rate. If they did go ahead and meet with two other companies before you, there is a higher chance they're going to keep that meeting because you're creating a certain amount of excitement with them and they want to see you. That helps.
Do you guys track the open rates or the engagement of those pre-estimate emails? Are people engaging with them? Are they reading them? Are they spending time on those? Are they just like, is it just sort of, more inbox clutter?
We're tracking them,
Yeah.
And you see the response rates as well, and you see the messages that they respond, obviously within these platforms. So, I mean, the response rates on text message is a lot higher than the response rates on email, for example.
Yeah.
So again, even more of a reason to focus a little bit more of your strategy or your communication strategy on the text messaging side of things. It's just so convenient. You're sitting watching TV, message comes in, you'll answer that versus you're not necessarily looking at your inbox all the time.
And I think you rattled through it, but I maybe I wasn't listening. Can you just go list off sort of the types of assets that you would be sending in that pre-estimate email or text? In my mind, I'm thinking like Google reviews, awards that you've won, maybe a photo gallery. Like, what are the right things? It's not just, but it's because here's the wrong thing. Your appointment is in 2 days. Your appointment is in 1 day. Your appointment is in 5 hours. It's like, okay, and thanks for the reminders. It's in the calendar. Like, you will actually piss off customers if you're sending, they would call them like no value emails. So what are the right things to add value to those emails to increase the odds that somebody shows up for that appointment?
Step one, make it real simple. Talk to your sales team. What are the top 5 questions you're always getting asked in these appointments? Why don't we address that right away in these communications?
Okay.
That's one easy, simple way of doing it. Testimonials to just help reassure that this customer is working with the right customers, with the right contractor. So testimonials, video testimonials perform better than these written testimonials.
Yeah.
People are catching on the fact that sometimes the written testimonials could be fake or things of that sort, whereas video, it's hard to fake. Human beings by nature, there's 2 things that I know about us is that we're somewhat lazy and we're not really patient.
Right.
Hence the reason why people don't like waiting. So when you have a video testimonial, it's just easier for a person to just absorb that content. It's a better experience as well than to just read a bunch of written testimonials for people. So I do highly recommend when you're done jobs, definitely focus on trying to get video testimonials of how the experience was with your customers, because you're going to share that in this process leading up to the meetings, and you'll show it at different stages in the process, but definitely here within the lead handling.
The other thing that I would add to that, and Marcus Sheridan talks about this a lot, is there should be something, if you're doing, especially if you're doing in-home selling, there should be something about the actual rep that's coming up. It doesn't need to be like a 45-minute video of their life story, but a quick, like, they should have a name, a face, a bit of an idea of who's coming to the door to talk about their kitchen reno or their landscaping job that they want to do or the pool they want installed. That would be another nice touch in that pre-estimate. And then, okay, so here's another question. What about those leads that just straight up don't book? So that you have their information, but they don't interact with the booking engine or the calendar tool at all. They don't answer when you call. They're just kind of floating in no man's land. And we all know anybody listening is going to have quite a long list of, those names that they just lost souls that we never spoke to. What are we doing with those people in terms of nurture?
So what we want to do is the speed to lead itself should last usually about 2 weeks. That usually we notice that there's a good impact even on the second week.
Okay.
After about 2 weeks, what you do is you put them onto a rehash strategy.
Okay.
What rehash is, it's basically staying top of mind. You're continuing to contact these leads that just weren't responding to you. And what you're telling them, first of all, the length for which this rehash should run is 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
You should never stop following up with a lead until the lead sort of says, hey, I'm good. I found somebody. You don't need to keep following up with me. Oh, okay, perfect. And even there's nothing stopping you from letting them know of other opportunities that you can maybe generate down the road. But the rehash, you're hitting them up maybe once a month. The type of messages, you're going to maybe talk to them about offers, talk to them about your certifications, talk to them about warranties on the services that you're offering. You're just reassuring the customer. Because it doesn't always have to be, hey, can we talk? Can we talk? That gets annoying after a certain period of time. So to hit them up with a different angle every single time. And then at a certain point, your customer, when they're ready, they're going to respond to you and they're going to say, hey, thanks for following up with me. I'm sorry. Things came up, but I'm ready to talk, and let's go ahead and let's book this right now. And then that's when that happens.
Love it. Should we move on to the next section?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Sales follow-up. So I think this is like what... This is what happens post estimate. Like you've gone out and looked at the project, or you've done it virtually. Now this is like the follow-up sequence and the systems that need to be in place at that point forward.
So you met with the customer. We sat down. Great opportunity. Some companies try to do one call close. So I'm closing them right there on the spot, but that doesn't always happen. And when it doesn't always happen, you're going to want to leave something in their hands, so a proposal, something of that sort. And then now there's this follow-up that's going to take place. So when you're talking to a lot of the contractors, they'll tell you, or they tell us anyhow, like, yeah, I got a great process. We have a bit of a script. They know when to follow up. And that's great that you have something set up. But the reality is, once sales reps don't really feel like doing administrative work, and this is like the administrative side of their job, they like to get out there, they want to go see people, they want to try and close them on the spot, and that's really what gets them excited. So the follow-up process a lot of times doesn't happen as we all think it's really happening.
Shocker.
So let's be realistic about that. When you give room for people to perform a certain way, you open up the door to potentially not guaranteeing it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So when you have a system in place, what you want to do is the system can do that follow-up on behalf of the sales rep. So if there's an email that's going out, it's going out from the sales rep. If it's a text message, it's saying, hey, Benji, it's Kevin here. Just want to follow up on that proposal I left you yesterday. Want to see if you had any questions. Is there anything I can maybe help you with? Things of that sort. That process itself, you're doing it, but you can allow the tools and the software to go ahead and do that for you. Not only that, it guarantees the consistency at which you're doing that follow-up to increase your chances of closing the business. And it also guarantees that you are communicating a particular way because you pre-built these messages that are to your satisfaction. You're happy. This is the way we want to talk to them when we follow up with these customers. You're guaranteeing that you're doing it that way because it's all being done through the tool itself.
Is it email, SMS, and are you doing
Calls.
like ringless voice drops as well?
Ringless voice drops, but also calls. At a certain stage, we're going to want to call them. So what happens at that stage is the sales rep's phone is going to ring, pick up the phone. They're going to say, hey, Kevin, it's time to follow up with Benji. Press any call to call out to Benji. So the sales rep doesn't have to think about it. They'll just hit the button on the phone. It's going to call out to that lead. That's amazing
sick.
Within the software.
I actually didn't. Yeah, that's cool. That's a newer. I mean, it's newer to me. I'm sure it's been around for a little while. So your actual follow-up cadence, and this is the manual one. This is where it's not automated. This is your voice on the phone, but the actual dial that needs to be made, which is usually the biggest. That's the biggest obstacle. Is the salesperson forgets. They're not checking their CRM twice a day like they say they are.
That's right.
They're not getting the notification saying you need to call Sherry Blackmore. This system actually just takes it a step further and calls you and says, hey, it's time for your follow-up with Sherry Blackmore.
Time to call them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool.
So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You can just do what you're doing. What happens when you have something like this in place is that your sales rep could spend more time doing more person-to-person meetings with customers. They can go and see 4 customers in a day instead of going to do 2 appointments because the rest of the time I got to do these follow-ups, I got to do admin work, I got to prepare my proposals and things of that sort. So there's an increase in efficiency and ability to go and see more customers, which leads to more sales at the end of the month. And that's where you have this benefit of having a software do a lot of the admin, I call it, or that follow-up process on behalf of you, for you, so that you could spend more time meeting customers. And it just means that the contractor doesn't have to hire as many people as quickly because their sales team can now meet more customers. So my costs go down because I don't have as much of an overhead for the business. I'm more efficient as a company. I'm closing at a higher rate because I'm consistently doing the follow-ups the way we want to do the follow-ups. And all of this works together.
We're starting to see a number of like really early adopters of some of these systems in sort of the contracting space, and you're starting to see some really ludicrous numbers. Like we had Brad Baker and Devin Crowell on last year. They had one salesperson do $6.6 million in sales in what is objectively a terrible market. No offense, guys, we love Moncton, but it's not exactly a booming metropolitan economy like the way Toronto would be, and they've managed to do that. Our friends at Epic Roofing, this is owned by Ryan Shantz. They had a guy do 8 million, one person do 8 million, and yeah, you could say some of it is inflation, and some of it maybe they get a few big jobs in there too, but a lot of it is just how efficient they've made these systems, where they're basically levering up how much one person can do through really clever automations. I love that idea of having the follow-up actually just your phone rings as the rep and you just push a button and then it makes the outbound for you. Hey, what does your research say around like the right cadence post estimate? Like, is it a call the next day and then a call 2 days later and then texts in between? Like, I'm sure there's some tweaking you do depending on the business, but overarchingly, are there some patterns that are pretty stable as far as the right cadence post estimate?
Yeah, it's not the same as speed to lead. You're not as aggressive.
Okay.
You're going to give them a little more time, let them breathe. When you do give them that proposal, 24 hours later, do a follow-up. That's for sure. You want to see if they have any question, things of that sort. And what happens a lot of times as well is the customer might reply to you and say, thanks for following up. Everything's good. Just give us a week or so to look at things and then we'll come to a decision. The tools that we have allow us to do this follow-up date. So schedule when you want to do the follow-up. And on that date, just like speed to lead, the system's going to do the follow-up for the sales rep automatically. So all they need to do is punch in the date that they want to do the follow-up and let the tool do it for them. And then what will happen on that day is they'll do the courtesy follow-up and it's built out to do at a certain cadence. So 24 hours later, you do a follow-up. If you don't get a reply, you want to let usually about 2 to 3 days go by, do another just email follow-up. And you're just sort of hitting them up every couple of days. So usually 3 days or so for about the first 2 weeks. And then after that, the messages that you're using as you move further down need to change all the time.
Say more about that.
So every time you're reaching out to them, it's not to say, hey, do you have any questions? That's what you do the first time. But after a certain period of time, you want to start asking them, saying, one of the angles that we'll use is like, usually there's 1 of 4 reasons why people don't want to move. It's for either pricing, just timelines, this, that, and so forth. Do any of this apply to you? So it's just a way to try and get them to respond. It's a different angle that you're using in your message.
Okay, I want to slow down here. What you're doing, the email or the SMS or whatever, is saying, hey, it's, we notice we haven't made a decision yet. Here are 4 of the most common reasons people don't make decisions. They're not happy with the price. They went with a competitor. They've decided not to do the job, or their schedule has changed. Do any of these apply to you? So in other words, you're like giving them the objection. You're spoon feeding the objection to them just to elicit a response. Because at this point you have nothing, which is worse than having an objection. You'd actually rather them say, no, we've gone with someone else, so that you can pull them off the list and you can focus your energy on something else. It's just an important point. You're actually like sort of giving them the reasons they may not be moving forward in the hopes that gets them back in communication with you.
You want to find out the objections. What's stopping you? So here are usually 4 reasons that are stopping people. Does any of this apply to you? So that's one strategy right there. Another angle further down that we'll sometimes use is getting the manager involved, or at least positioning it as, hey, I'm John, I'm the manager here, I'm Kevin's manager, and I just want to follow up. I see we have a proposal out, we haven't moved forward. What is it maybe? Is there something I can maybe do to try and help out with? Sometimes it could be that they just didn't have a really good experience with the salesperson. And if the manager comes in and uses this approach to try and get a response from them, they'll respond more to a manager because I have someone that's more senior, higher up in the company. They may able to give me a little wiggle room on the price, which is something I wasn't able to necessarily get when I spoke to the rep and things of that sort. So that's a different angle that we'll use to basically elicit a response from the customer.
Kev, what's your perspective on the aggressive versus passive spectrum here at this stage? Because this is a really delicate balance. Too passive and you are absolutely losing revenue because you're just not doing a professional job of following up. You might in your mind justify it by saying, well, I don't want to be annoying and they'll make the decision on themselves. I mean, those are excuses for bad salesmanship. That's one end. But on the other end, you just sort of get, if you're calling them every day desperately, not only is it probably not going to work, but there's actually potential brand damage that's done. Like you will get reviews on Google being like, we didn't go with these people because they were like harassed us for 2 weeks every single day after we got a free quote. Like, so what is your thoughts on how do we do that tightrope walk between passive and aggressive on the follow-up?
Yeah, good question. There's, like I said, you don't want to be as aggressive as your speed to lead. Where speed to lead, you're hitting them up almost every day, or at least every 2 days at the beginning of the process.
Because you're entitled to at that point. They asked for a quote. They've reached out to you. Like you sort of have an excuse to be that aggressive with the follow up at that stage. At this stage, it's sort of a little bit more okay. Like you've done your thing, you've done your presentation. It's time to leave the ball in their court a little.
At the same time, if you did a good job as a salesperson, you should have asked them, like, how much time do you need to make a decision?
Yeah.
And that will help you determine how frequent or what kind of frequency you should do. If someone says, we should be making a decision fairly soon, perfect. Put them onto a particular, you could have multiple sales follow-up sequences built into these tools. You could have one that's more aggressive, one that's more passive. We have one which is the standard one that follows up the next day. We have another one, like I said, where if they say, well, this is going to take us a little bit more time, we have a version 2 that can be used, which spreads out the follow-up. It'll usually follow up the first time like a week later because they said, we're going to probably look at this more next week and things like that. So it's already pre-built into that sequence to follow up at that cadence. But it's okay on the sales side of things to follow up every few days with them. Hit them up 24 hours, follow up maybe 2 to 3 days later. But after about a week to 2 weeks, you could spread it out a little bit more. Follow up every 4 days with them, but your messages that you're using when you get after about 2 to 3 weeks, you got to be a little bit more like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what's stopping you? What do we need to do? We really want to win your business. Please give us some feedback so that we know what we can do here to win you over as a customer. So you're not necessarily speaking to them that way at the beginning of the sales follow-up. You're going to be doing a little bit more because time is going by. And don't forget, you're not the only one following up with them. If your competitors are a little bit more aggressive than you and they're able to get this person on the phone and potentially close the business, well, you were so passive, you lost that opportunity that you could have maybe gained.
It's hard. Customer doesn't care what your quarterly quota is. They don't care that you have a hole in the schedule in 3 weeks you're trying to fill. They're on their time, and you can do certain things to create urgency or create scarcity. And there's, little tips and tricks to make them move. I don't know, maybe 10% or 15%. But in my experience, people make decisions when they're good and ready. And that can be frustrating as a salesperson. Anything else you want to say about sales follow-up, or should we move on to reviews?
Not really. Like I said, it just really has a huge impact on the efficiency of the business, which is one of the main reasons why it does impact the closing rate. Where we are noticing, like, your closing rate's not to go up by 20% because you're implementing these systems. Usually we'll see an increase in the closing rate, usually around 5% or so.
That's still pretty significant.
That's what I'm saying. When you factor in the number of leads that you get on a monthly basis, like it could mean hundreds of thousands, if not a million or 2 million extra in your pocket for the same number of leads and the same investment that you're making to acquire those leads.
Totally. Let's talk reviews.
Yeah. So reviews, there should be a combination of requests that happens usually from your project manager at the end of the job. That's just given. They should try to get a review from them. The other thing too that we're noticing, companies that get a lot of reviews, they're asking reviews twice in the process. What I mean by that is surprising, and I was shocked when I saw this, but we tested it, it worked well, is that they're asking a review after the sales meeting. And they didn't even buy from the company. So after the meeting happens, it's all automated. There's a request that will come up from the sales rep and say, Benji, it's Kevin here. I hope we were able to give you a really great experience. Did you feel that we gave you a 5-star experience in the meeting today that we had? Did we answer your questions, things of that sort? And then they reply, yeah, you did a great job. Thank you. They can then have an automated reply that goes out and says, well, Benji, if you could really take 2 minutes, I'd love it if you could share that with us. My manager, it would definitely help me look good, and my manager would definitely be proud of me if you can do that. And then what happens is there's a certain percentage of the people that go ahead and leave those reviews for the sales rep, and it shows up on their Google profile. Then the second time you do it is you're going to ask them after the job is completed. When
does that work?
The way you do,
sorry to cut you off here. Like it seems annoying. Like I would be annoyed if someone like sent me a review like post. I'd be like, we haven't even done business. We haven't transacted. I'm not your customer. Like, are people finding success with that? Are they getting people to just review based on the sales experience?
They are, yeah.
Huh.
It's not a tremendous amount. Like, it's not necessarily this huge. Most of the reviews are going to happen after the job is complete because they got the full experience. They're done and they're ready to give it to you. But there is a percentage of people that will give you reviews after the sales process. And those are reviews you would never have gone if you didn't ask them. If you don't ask, you never know. So go ahead, ask them, include it in there. The other thing as well is the follow-up for the reviews. You're asking them usually just once.
Yeah.
If you have a couple of minutes, leave us. That's it. You're not asking them twice and doing a follow-up until they actually leave the review. You ask them once. If they leave it, great. If they don't, no problem. I'm going to ask them again at the end of the job if we win them as a customer. But what happens when you do it after the sales process is, again, I'm closing about 30% of these meetings. So those meetings that I'm having with them, there's a percentage of them that may not buy from us, but they had a great experience with us, and they could still leave us a review even if they're not a customer. So that's where there's that benefit of trying to get more reviews. All I'm saying is I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it is working in the sense that they are getting reviews. And when you look at these companies, they have hundreds of reviews on their profiles because they have the system in place that asks them after the sale, as well as after they had the chance to sit down and, after they completed the job and asked for the review there.
Okay, so we all know, and we've talked about this on many other podcasts, we all know the value of a very strong Google rating with like a high volume of reviews. I mean, if you can, like, I think if you can get it to triple digits, you're absolutely in the upper percentile of businesses. You have 100 plus reviews we actually had the founder of Nice Job on. I asked him, like, what is the perfect Google star rating? And he said 4.8 out of 5. You have 5 nobody believes, but a 4.8 is sort of like the optimal score you can get, with obviously as many reviews supporting that as possible, because that gives you a bigger sample size. And we all know when we look at Google, anyone does this, they open up the map pack, they look at something, they see a high score. The next thing they look, okay, well, how many people have rated it? And if it's only 4, somebody has a 4.7, but 4 people have rated it, okay, well, one of these you did yourself, you made a fake account, then you had your mom review. This isn't a real score. Everyone knows that. Where's it going with this? Okay, so we all know the value of having a good Google star rating, just for that sort of public facing moment when someone is searching for something and they see your business. People interact with that. But my question is, when it comes to this sort of sales efficiency thing, making more out of the leads that we do get, are there moments in the sales process or elsewhere in the brand environment where we're sort of forcing these reviews? Force is a strong word, but manually putting these reviews back in front of the customer again, just in case they didn't see it on Google or they've forgotten about it? Do we embed those in an email or an SMS or put them on socials, or like what's kind of like where's the right place to manually get these in front of the customer again for the sake of sales efficiency?
Everywhere.
Okay, just everywhere. Plaster them.
It's not necessarily plaster them, but they can be used at all the different steps. So you're going to have it on a website, landing page, speed to lead. You're going to include it in the sequence of your speed to lead. Here, while you're sort of deciding who to maybe work with, here are some recent reviews that we've received from our customers. Sale to try and close them. You're using it there. Those are it's used in multiple steps of the entire process. It's not just used once. So yeah, that's what I mean. You can include it everywhere. On all of our landing pages, we have reviews mentioned everywhere. Ideally, video reviews. I'd rather send a message to somebody with a link to a YouTube video that has a customer explaining their experience than to just show them a quoted text of somebody out in XYZ city who left us a review. It's going to have more of a punch, more of an impact when it's a video than when it's written. And that's the challenge is the Google reviews that you're talking about, they have a psychological impact on somebody's perception of who should I call. When I go online and I do a search, I have like, nowadays, Google is giving me like 40 options to call.
Totally.
Which one do I contact out of those options? And now you can keep scrolling almost indefinitely. There is no page 2. It just keeps going on page 1. So you're sort of like, how do I stand apart from the pack? Well, when they see those local listings that you're talking about, and they have 3 that are showing up in the map pack, one of them's got 250, the other one's got 20, and another one's got 15. The other ones might get called, but I'm telling you, the one that's got 250, there's a very high probability that company's going to get called because the customer just feels more reassured with the number of 4.7, 4.8, or whatever number that they have based on that volume of reviews. It makes them feel like you've done this work multiple times. You're a great company because if not, you wouldn't have the number of reviews that you have. So I'm going to consider you as an option. Pick up the phone and call or fill out the form regardless. The other thing too that I want to definitely put emphasis that's really important when we're doing our SEO mandates for our customers, the review process is a huge part of the recipe. You can do all this on-page optimization, all this link building and all that stuff. If you don't have reviews, good luck. It is tough to get a site to rank or a business profile to rank without reviews. So the reviews play a huge part of your ability to have a successful SEO mandate as well. So it's a big part of that recipe.
We have a member. I was just looking at, we've got a member. I've mentioned him on the show a couple times. Corey Byron of Van City Electric. I was looking at his website. I can't remember why I was looking him up, and I know he uses Nice Job. He has 374 reviews and a 4.9 star rating. No, he does service calls, so it's like he does a lower average sale, higher turnover type project, type business, which lends itself to those big numbers.
More volume.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm so bullish on this. We've done a bunch of episodes on this in the past, and I think even increasingly with younger buyers, this is going to be even more important than it is with Gen X and baby boomers, as millennials kind of are starting to do home service type work. They're buying homes, they're moving, they're doing stuff. This Google, I think I really am a huge proponent of this being a massive thing to invest in now for the future of your business. I don't see a world where someone with 4 reviews on Google is going to be very competitive in 5 years.
Not only that, a lot of people want to gate the reviews. I just want to get the 5 and the 4 stars. I don't want to get anything less. They're worried about that, and we try to work around that to accommodate. Like you said, I'm okay with it. It's okay to get a couple of bad reviews. It shows how that's legit. That it's not your grandmother and family member and everybody else that are leaving reviews on the profile, and so it's okay. I don't think it's necessary to go ahead and start gating the reviews or trying to make sure that you only get the 4 or 5 stars. If you are concerned about that, I think you have bigger problems to worry about than just getting those reviews.
Kev, are there any automated tools to get those video testimonials? Because I know a lot of things, like most of these reputation management softwares. I've mentioned Nice Job. There are many. There are lots. They help you sort of send automated messages to your customers at the moment of peak excitement to maximize the chance that you get a 5-star, and then if you get a 3-star, it gives you a notification so you can go correct it. They're really nifty little tools. Is there anything like that for capturing video testimonials?
We're not using anything anyhow on our side. Okay. And the reason why these video testimonials, you want to have someone there from the company to sort of control what's being given as a message to a certain degree. So a lot of times with the video testimonials is they're asking them specific questions to try and elicit a particular type of answer in return. And they want to, sometimes the customer will give an answer and they'll stop and say, hey, let's just try that again, but just maybe more in this direction if you're okay with that. And then they'll do a take 2 and things like that. There are tools that exist to go get video testimonials. The thing is, it's hard to get a video testimonial. A lot of people aren't comfortable on camera, so you got to sort of convince them. You got to sell it to them. You got to, you got to finesse it a little bit to encourage them to do it. And a lot of times with the way the tools work is it's similar to like just the automated review process where you're sending out a text message. They would click a link, go to a site, record on their phone and things of that sort to do the review. You'll get, I don't have the stats on how many people will leave reviews going that way versus actually having a salesperson or the production manager there on the spot at the end of the job when you're done the walkthrough and the customer's super happy. Can you give me just 2 minutes? Pop open the camera. Let's do a quick review. Customer says, yes, perfect. They're hot. They're excited. They're in that moment. There's a higher chance to leave you the review at that moment than if you let them cool down a little bit and you send them an email or a text message, try and get it later.
Yeah, it's well said. Let's talk about reactivation and referrals.
Awesome. So reactivation, what that is now we've sold to the company, we've done the work, we've completed the job, we asked them for review. What's next? Now, because we said at the beginning, it's very competitive. You want to try and maximize that return on investment you can get from your customers. So although you were done the work the first time, you want to go get more business from them, number one. And you want to try and go get referrals, because when you go get the referrals or the extra business, it starts the wheel all over again. Now they become a new lead. We go through that sales process, close them. And then those new customers, we're going to go get referrals from them. And it just keeps going like this. It's a machine that we're putting in place. That's like the life cycle marketing that we talk about. It's this whole circular machine where it starts over. So the reactivation campaign is designed in a way so that it runs 12 months out of the year and it never stops. It is always running. So the systems that we put in place, they're actually designed to the messages go out on a timely fashion. What I mean by that is it's based on where we are in the year. So come around the new year.
There's like a spring blast, there's a summer blast, there's a heading into fall. Yeah, I got it.
So it's not set up where it's like we add them to the sequence, 2 days later send them this, 3 days later or a month later send them that. It's not done that way. It's done in a way where we're already in the year, put them into this part of the sequence, and then let it go through all the months in there that are built out. So that way, come around the holidays, you can wish them happy holidays. Thank you for being a valued customer. A lot of times in the home improvement industry, December, January, February is not the most popular time of the year. Business goes down at that time because there's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's Christmas, they got the credit card bills, they're going, oh my God, they're going to wait. And once they get their tax money around March, then they start to say, okay, let's go in and do those investments. So it picks up again. So a lot of times in your reactivation, you might want to be a little more aggressive in your offers around the December, January, Feb to try and get people to not necessarily wait and to get them to reach out to you at that moment of the year. But yet come around March, April, May, you're going to lay back a little bit on that aggressive offer and go a little bit more with just what you use as standard, because business is naturally coming in at that time of the year and you're super busy. So you can program and organize your communications throughout the whole year based on that seasonality that we're talking about. And in there, what you're setting out as messages, well, we talked about referrals. You want to have a referral program in place. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes because I want to get into a couple of details with that. But the messages you want to talk about are, here are current offers that we're doing. You want to give them, help them out. Give them professional tips and tricks and things to think about. And depending on where you are in the country, come around autumn, these are things to think about as we get into the winter season. Or in spring, these are things that you got to think about as we, the snow melts if you're in that region of the world, and, got to think about X, Y, and Z. So you want to give them these pro tips to be a resource for your customer. It's not always like, hey, sell, 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 sell. Help them out. Give before you take. And just naturally, there are messages in there where you could say, hey, we're currently running an offer right now for this month where we're doing this. Is this something you might be interested in? And that will elicit sometimes responses from people that do have an interest at that moment. It might have been a project that they were interested in doing that they're going to do in 2-3 months. But because you messaged them now and gave them a reason to reach out to you today, that generates new business for your company.
And it's not a ton, right? It's not, I think people are often, if they're doing this for the first time, are disappointed with the effectiveness of long-term nurtures. It's not like you've added this 20% revenue stream, but you are picking up a job here and a job there. You are staying front of mind with people, and it is it's a light touch. It's not going to be a massive needle mover, but it's fairly it doesn't take a whole lot of time or money to set it up once, and it's totally automated. It just kind of sits there and does its stuff in the background for you.
The only thing you need to do in there is review your messages once a year. because it runs throughout the whole year. You look at the response rates, you look at when we positioned this particular message around this offer, how many replies did we get, or how much business did we generate from that? And that allows you to sort of tweak it. But you're really doing that tweak once a year at most, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
For example, I had a painting company, and they also do like epoxy flooring for residential garage doors, right? So they went after all the customers that they did the painting jobs with, and all they did is we had a reactivation campaign, 3 messages in there. Usually you'll message people at most once a month, so 12 messages within a year at most. I don't recommend really doing more unless you really have more value to share with them.
And you probably don't.
But,
yeah, that's plenty.
Exactly. So to be honest, most of the reactivation campaigns we have only have like 4 messages or 6 messages, because people just don't have content to really go get more. And that's fine. It's not a question of volume. It's just, if you're going to message them, get something of importance, something that's worth it for them to read, and don't waste their time. But with the painting company, we use the reactivation campaign to try and generate business for the epoxy flooring, as well as, you did one room, you got to do the other rooms at some point. So our messages were geared around, here's a couple of jobs we did in the kitchens where they did kitchen cabinet refacing. If this is something you're interested, let us know. We'd love to book a call with you. Here's a link in our calendar. So even there, you don't need to go back and forth and try to book something. They're just booking the stuff automatically in your calendar. And they generated like 60,000 within a month.
Wow.
Just by going after their database. And I believe there were about 5,000 people in the database that we were messaging. So how many of these people, if we didn't have this campaign running, would have just thought about reaching out to this company? Probably nobody, or very little. So that was just free money. It cost them very little to put in place, and it generated a good amount of money, and it runs on autopilot for them. That's a great use case right there.
People are really scared to use their list. I mean, and by that I mean their email list. They're sort of like, and not everyone. I'm sure some people are just like, sophisticated marketers and salespeople, and they understand the power of a good email list. But I mean, I know even for us at Breakthrough Academy, it took us quite a while to like accept the fact that, hey, if you have a big list, we've got probably 40,000 people. If you email people an offer, some people are going to buy and you're going to make money. And you sort of have to get over this story you tell yourself for like, I'm bothering people, or I don't want to be too aggressive. It's like most people could afford to actually lean into emailing their list, reactivating old customers, et cetera, more than they do. You wanted to talk about referral, a dead simple kind of like referral thing to insert in here as well.
Yeah. So when it comes to trying to generate referrals from your customers, the process has to be dead simple. People don't really feel like running through hoops, downloading apps to be able to do it, or, necessarily go to a particular page. So we've been testing different ways to try and generate referrals for customers. And one of the ways that seemed to work really well, obviously what works the best is when someone says, yeah, this is the company, call them. And then that's how most people do it. But to be able to try and generate a referral, to get them to act in sending something, it's part of your reactivation, one of the messages that could be in your reactivation campaign. And we put in place a system where it's just done through text message. Like everybody's on their phone. It takes 2 seconds. It's not complicated. And the way we did it is in our reactivation campaign, in the message that go out, we say, if you have someone that may be interested in our services, just have them, or you could go ahead and send a keyword to this phone number. And our system will ask you a bunch of questions so we can jot this down. So what they do is they send the word. It's a bot that we built out. The bot basically says, hey, thanks for sending this our way. And it basically asks them, it asks them a series of questions. Say, well, are you referring someone, or are you the person that got referred? And depending on their answer, it goes down the rabbit hole in that direction. And it just says, can I get your full name, email, phone number? And then once that's done, it logs that information. If somebody's referring a person, it's going to go ahead and send a text message. It's going to go ahead and send an email. It's going to say, hey, Benji, we just spoke with Kevin. Kevin recommended that we reach out to you, said that you may have an interest for our services. We specialize in roofing and this, that, whatever. We'd love to book a call with you. If you just click this link and try to choose a time that's appropriate for you, we'd like to get this going.
Yeah.
Boom. It's a speed to lead specific for like a referral program. And then what happens is they go through the sales process. Because we're tracking this in the CRM, you get to a certain part of that one of the stages. Usually it's when you actually sit down and meet with the customer that you're willing to give out your referral fee. And everybody's a little bit different. Referrals will usually go anywhere from like $50, $100, $200, depending the average ticket of the service. But another pain was when our customers were telling us were that when I have to send this out, I got to print out these gift cards. I got to put them in an envelope. I got to mail them to the customer. Is there like a better way of doing this? And we said, yeah, absolutely. So what we did is when they get to a certain stage where they met with the customer, because we know it was a referral and we know who sent the referral, it automatically goes ahead and sends the contact info to a company that we use called Tango Cards. Tango Cards they're a gift card company and they have connections with like 200 or 300 websites over the web. So what it does is Tango Cards mails out the gift card to the customer and they could redeem it on any website that they want. Easy peasy. It's simple. It's automated. And we actually log all the referrals that come in a Google sheet. So you know like who referred who, where are we with these referrals? And that way you keep track of everything.
Yeah, very, very cool. You're not dinking around with like these like a lot. Somebody, so and so wants to refer you business. Get this app. I forget what it's called. You sort of get these requests via email or LinkedIn to sort of join some other platform that clearly no one uses. This is a very, very simple. You don't need to be, tech forward. You don't need to be using a tool. It literally just does it for you, and you get in this case Tango Cards to do. To get rid of that friction for you. You might want to give the referral, but we all know you're busy. Are you going to go to the post office and cut these out and write a handwritten message and buy the stamps? Probably not. So I love that. This is like such a thorough and in-depth walkthrough of systems to put in place and best practices to adopt to increase your lead efficiency, reduce your lead slippage. Any date like. How should we wrap up this conversation? Here's what I want to ask you. Like, what will people begin to notice in their business? Or do you have any data or insight or examples or stories of like really, really compelling improvements that have been made here?
Yeah, we there's usually improvements across the board, especially when you're doing it manually to implementing a system. We have a customer of ours that they're buying leads online. And the average lead cost, this was a roofing customer of ours, the average ticket was about $15,000. Okay. They're buying the cost to acquire leads online was about $250, which is the average. It's rare that you get, I would say, a good lead at like $50, $20 or things of that sort. So they're buying these leads around $250, which is, up there. It's not cheap. They were issuing leads with their current system, and the current process was, what I said at the beginning, speed to lead, comes into the inbox, they're calling, they're doing this, they're doing that with the customer. It's all manually handled, basically. And they were basically issuing leads at around 63%, which is good. I told you, usually between 60 to 70 is the average. They were in the average. From the ability to, once they sat down, did the appointment, and closed the business, they were closing at around 28%. So they weren't far off from the 30%. It's like they're struggling, but they wanted to do better. So once we had implemented the system inside of their business, the rate at which they were issuing the leads went up from 63 to 77%. And That is rare to see above 70%. I have a company that's doing 80 to 95% lead issue rate, by the way. And they have a whole bunch of things that they're doing that's amazing, including the Boomerang, including the automation software. So they brought it up to about 77%. Their close rate went up a little bit. It was at 28, went up to about 32% in the time that we tracked this. So they're buying the same number of leads. So they're buying, let's just say, 100 leads a month. They're paying them at about $250 leads. So they're spending $25,000 a month to acquire these leads. Before, out of 100, they're issuing 63, and of the 63, they're closing about 18 of those.
Yeah.
Your average ticket's 15,000, so they're doing about 270,000 a month. Okay. Once we implemented the system, now for the same 100 leads, we didn't change anything in the strategy. It's the same landing pages, the same campaigns, and all that stuff. It was at a different part of the year, so that could have had a bit of an impact, but it wasn't like December versus May where it's in prime time. It was, I think, between April and May that we had ran this. So for the same 100, they were getting 77 leads that were issued, and of those 77, they're closing 25 customers out of that. So now instead of making 275,000 a month, they're making 375,000. Same leads. Just a different process, a system in place to guarantee the efficiency that we were talking about today. So by month, they're making over 100,000 in revenue, about 1.2 million in extra revenue for the same amount of investment that they're making. So you could see it right there. And the beauty behind all of the that we're doing is you could measure it. You could see what's working, what's not working, where to tweak. We're looking to get, response rates of 75% or more in some of these messages. If we're not hitting that, we see the data. And that's what's huge about this is you have a system that allows you to really see where you're losing your potential, tweak it, test it out, and get it better and better and better. And one of the things that we're trying to do a better job at, I feel like we're not doing good enough a job at doing this, but I want to be able to, when we get these wins, because we're all serving the same customers, leverage the wins to let everybody else know and replicate them in their particular accounts so that we build a bit of a community within our customers and share the knowledge so that everybody gets to win long term.
Couple things I want to say here as we wrap. One is just highlighting the power of ratios, especially in a big system. A 2 percentage point improvement on your efficiency on a $3 million a year business I'm not going to do the math. I can't do it in my head. It is a massive, massive amount of revenue, gross profit, and net profit. And this is money that you're already spending to get the lead in the first place. So this is essentially free revenue and profit that you're saying no to just because you don't have a system or you don't know about a system or you're too lazy to implement one. This is free profit that's sitting there on the table that you're basically declining. So I just really want to highlight the power of ratios. The other thing that I really love about this conversation is we're all told at conferences and by speakers and salespeople to treat your leads like gold and they're the lifeblood of your business. And we all know that, but we also know that it's really, really difficult to actually do that. And the days of, old school sales guy with business cards and a big mobile phone are over. Like the technology is here for us for 80% of this to be solved for you to allow you to focus on higher leverage activities. So it's not necessarily a, tiny project to do all this, but it is, I would really, really hammer this point home before we wrap today. It's like, this is infrastructure that you build it once. It's not done forever. It needs to be updated and combed through, and you need to have some semblance of checking it for, checking it every year, doing kind of a...
Got to give it love.
You got to give it love, and you got to give it updates, and there are offers that change and your business changes. But once you have an architecture to it in your business, in your CRM, in your automations, trained into your sales team, once you have an architecture for it, it's much easier to tweak and update as the years go by. But the foundational work is there for you to do it. And like compound interest, like anything, as you sort of go through the years of your business's growth, if you are, like I say, a few percentage points, more efficient year over year, that stuff really, really adds up. So I think now would be the time to do this, coming back to where we started the conversation. If you look at the headwinds that the economy is facing, all over North America, but certainly here in Canada, leads are going to be harder to come by. That I don't think that's going to get any better. I think people are really, really wishful and overly optimistic about things kind of, interest rates are going to be lowered in July and we're all going to be back to the races. I'm not an economist, but I personally think that's kind of you're smoking hope dope. Now would be a great time to invest in this system within your business. It's also, by the way, when things get good again, you're just going to reap the rewards even more. So, Kevin, any final comments on this?
One thing real quick. There's tons of tools that could do a lot of what we're talking about today, right? Software at the end of the day is just software. It's how you leverage the software. It's the experience. It's the knowledge that you bring to the table. That's what makes it special. And unfortunately, we see it time after time that where a lot of people are failing is that they're getting the tools that have the capabilities, but they don't know how to leverage it efficiently for their business. So if you do go into this direction of leveraging these tools in the software, try to make sure that you partner up with somebody, a company, an expert that's going to be able to help implement it for you in the business. Mm-hmm. Because there's far too many scenarios and situations that we're seeing where they have these techs and they're like, it's not doing what we want it to do. And I don't blame you. You don't know and understand how to do it. So definitely keep that in mind when you're shopping your vendors and sort of trying to find the right partner to go with. That is a key part of this equation. You need someone that's going to be able to guide you, and if anything, do a lot of this implementation for you so that it cuts down the amount of time you can get up and running. And it just sort of doesn't guarantee, but it just makes sure that when you do go live with someone, it's hitting the mark right out the gate.
Kev, this is an amazing overview. Tell us where people can connect with you or connect with Webrunner.
Head over to the website, webrunnermedia.com. On there, you'll see at the top right, we have a link to book a demo with us. There's a lot of content on there about our services, what we do. We've become over time a full service marketing agency, and we implement these solutions for our customers that involve, we build out the websites, SEO, PPC, anything that has to do with paid acquisition, and now Boomerang, which is the CRM and automation side of things, to be able to go ahead and put everything into place for you. We want to make sure that when it comes to the reporting and everything, that we're extremely transparent, that you know exactly whatever I'm doing, that we know exactly the profitability, how it's impacting your business, because at the end of the day, our mindset is simple. If you see that you're profitable as a company while working with us, you're not going to go anywhere. So that's the reason why we hit hard in making sure that all the data is tracked and that we're very transparent there.
Thank you so much for your time today, dude. Looking forward to catching up again soon. Thanks, Kev.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of Contractor Evolution. If you've already subscribed to our channel, consider sharing this episode with another contractor who you think needs to hear it.